The Galactic Union had existed for 13 millennia, a peaceful coalition of 17 sentient species spanning across 3 spiral arms of the Milky Way. Each race had brought something unique to the table. The Meridians their faster-than-light technology, the Vosians their medical advances, the Heliacs their architectural marvels. For all their differences, they had one thing in common. They were all prey species in their evolutionary history. The Union thrived on diplomacy, cooperation, and intellectual pursuits. Violence was considered primitive, warfare an ancient relic. Their military consisted of little more than a peacekeeping force equipped with non-lethal weapons. Then the Drax came. The first attack hit the outer colony of Nimbus IV. Communications ceased abruptly, followed by a desperate, fragmented distress call. When Union ships arrived, they found only ruins. The settlers processed into biomass to fuel Drax hive ships. The Drax were nightmarish creations, 6-limbed chitinous predators with hive minds and ravenous appetites. They spread through the galaxy with terrifying efficiency, consuming everything in their path. Colony after colony fell before the Union understood the gravity of their situation. "They are unstoppable," declared High Counselor Alara of the Meridians during an emergency session. Her translucent wings trembled as she addressed the assembled representatives. "Our weapons cannot penetrate their armor. Our shields fail against their bioweapons." "We must negotiate," suggested Counselor Tovo of the Heliacs, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's dim light. "Perhaps we can reach an understanding." The Union sent their finest diplomats. The Drax returned their heads in ornate boxes. With military options exhausted and diplomacy failed, desperation set in. It was during this darkest hour that ancient Union records mentioned a species the galactic community had deliberately avoided: humans. Earth had been discovered centuries earlier, but contact was never initiated. Observation posts monitored the small blue planet from a distance, watching with a mixture of fascination and horror. Humans were an anomaly in the galaxy, a prey species that thought like predators. Their history was soaked in blood, their progress driven by warfare. They had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times, yet emerged stronger after each crisis. They built weapons not just for defense, but for offense. Their entertainment glorified violence, their art depicted destruction, their literature celebrated warriors. "Absolutely not," Tovo said when the proposal was raised. "They're savages, unpredictable, dangerous." "They're survivors," countered Admiral Mira, the highest-ranking military officer in the Union. Her scales shifted from blue to gray as she spoke. "They've fought wars we cannot even comprehend. They understand violence in ways we never will." "But they're primitives," objected another counselor. "They haven't even colonized beyond their solar system." "Because we've been suppressing their development," Mira replied. "The observation outposts have been dampening their signals, interfering with their deep space probes. We've been keeping them contained because we feared them." The debate raged for days while more colonies fell. Finally, with the Drax approaching the Union's core worlds, the decision was made. "Send the message," Alara commanded. "Tell them everything, and pray they're as dangerous as we fear." The transmission was simple: coordinates to a meeting point, specifications for a compatible communication system, and a desperate plea. "Help us. We are dying." No one expected how quickly they would respond, or what they would bring with them. The human delegation arrived in a vessel that confused Union sensors. It was neither sleek nor aesthetically pleasing like Union ships. It bristled with what were clearly weapon systems, its hull scarred from previous conflicts. The meeting took place on Nexus Station, a neutral diplomatic hub. The Union sent their highest officials, expecting a primitive species awed by advanced technology. What they got were 5 humans in utilitarian uniforms, led by Admiral Thomas Grant, a weathered man with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. "We received your message," Grant said without preamble. "We've reviewed your data on the Drax. We can help." The Union representatives explained their situation in greater detail: the fallen colonies, the failed counterattacks, the millions of lives lost. Throughout the briefing, the humans remained stoic, occasionally exchanging glances or making notes. "You have no effective weapons?" asked Commander Kate Reeves, Grant's second-in-command, her voice tinged with disbelief. Our philosophy abhors violence, explained Alara. Our weapons are designed to incapacitate, not kill. The humans exchanged meaningful looks. What would you have us do? Grant finally asked. Save us, Alara said simply. Drive back the Drax. Protect our people. You misunderstand, Grant replied, his voice grave. I'm not asking for instructions. I'm asking for permission. Because what we're going to do, it won't align with your philosophy. The silence that followed was deafening. Do what you must, Alara eventually whispered. The humans departed immediately, requesting only star charts, tactical data, and direct communication channels with Union leadership. They promised to return with a response force. What the Union expected was a fleet of ships similar to the diplomatic vessel, perhaps a few hundred humans at most. What arrived 3 weeks later changed their understanding of humanity forever. A fleet of over 200 warships materialized at the edge of the Meridian system. Each vessel was a monument to humanity's martial prowess, built not for exploration or science, but for one purpose only: war. At their center was the UES Retribution, a dreadnought 17 kilometers long. Its communication array activated, and Admiral Grant's face appeared on screens across the Union. This is just the first wave, he announced. Our main battle groups are preparing as we speak. We've analyzed the Drax attack patterns and biology from your data. We know how to hurt them. The Union representatives watched in awe as human ships deployed formations that made no sense to their tactical minds. These weren't defensive postures. They were hunter patterns, predatory configurations designed not to repel, but to pursue and destroy. We request that all Union civilians be evacuated from the projected combat zones, Grant continued. What follows will not be suitable for observation. How can so few ships make a difference? Asked a doubtful Heliax representative. The Drax have thousands of hive ships. Grant's expression darkened. Numbers aren't everything in war. And, make no mistake, this is no longer your crisis management operation. This is war. The human fleet departed toward the nearest Drax-occupied system, leaving behind a small contingent of officers to coordinate with the Union. As they vanished into FTL, Admiral Mira turned to her colleagues. I believe, she said quietly, that we may have unleashed something we don't fully understand. She had no idea how prophetic her words would prove to be. The first battle between humans and Drax took place over the agricultural world of Proxima Centauri, recently fallen to the invaders. Union leadership expected a cautious probing attack, perhaps the disabling of a few Drax vessels before a strategic retreat. What they witnessed instead would be etched into the collective memory of the Galactic Union forever. The human fleet emerged from FTL not at the system's edge as was standard practice, but directly amid the Drax armada. What followed was not a battle in the Union's understanding of the term, but a slaughter. Human ships fired weapons of incomprehensible destructive capacity. Kinetic impactors accelerated to relativistic speeds tore through Drax vessels. Nuclear torpedoes detonated inside hive ships after penetrating their organic hulls. Beam weapons boiled away entire sections of the enemy fleet. They're using atomic weapons, gasped a Vosian observer, her feathered crest flattening in horror. In a planetary system. More shocking than the weapons was the human battle doctrine. Union species fought defensively, creating protective formations. Humans attacked relentlessly, pursuing damaged enemies, exploiting weaknesses, showing no concern for their own casualties as they pressed their advantage. Within 6 hours, the Drax fleet was in full retreat. Within 12, not a single enemy vessel remained in the system. But the humans weren't finished. The planet is contaminated with Drax bioforms, Admiral Grant informed the stunned Union observers. We're initiating planetary sterilization protocols. Before anyone could object, missiles descended toward Proxima Centauri. They didn't target the Drax specifically, but the entire biosphere. The Union watched in horror as fires swept across the planet's surface, burning away the Drax infestation, along with everything else. You've destroyed an entire ecosystem, protested Counselor Tovo. It was already lost, replied Commander Reeves, dispassionately. Drax bioweapons had corrupted it beyond recovery. Our terraforming teams can restore it once the war is over. The human fleet didn't pause to celebrate their victory or mourn the world they'd burned. They immediately set course for the next Drax-held system. Similar scenes played out across the front lines as more human forces arrived. The Drax, encountering serious resistance for the first time, responded with increased aggression, committing more hive ships to each battle. The humans met them with escalating force. 3 weeks into the campaign, the Drax launched a desperate attack against a major Union population center, the Heliax homeworld. 6,000 hive ships descended on the crystalline planet and its 14 billion inhabitants. The Union's remaining defensive fleet prepared for a last stand, knowing they couldn't survive, but hoping to buy time for some evacuations. They expected to fight alone, as the nearest human forces were engaged elsewhere. They were wrong. Moments before the Drax arrived, space tore open in a way the Union had never witnessed before. A new human fleet emerged, led by a vessel dwarfing even the Retribution. Its transponder identified it as the UES Harbinger, and its first transmission chilled the Union observers to their core. "This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Reed of the Human Extinction Response Division. We are deploying Nova-class strategic assets. All Allied forces withdraw immediately to minimum safe distance." The Union fleet retreated in confusion, watching as the human vessels released thousands of small objects toward the incoming Drax armada. "What are they deploying?" asked Admiral Mira. Her question was answered when the first detonations began. Each explosion was a miniature star, burning with the heat of a solar flare, consuming everything caught in its radius. The Drax fleet didn't just die. It was unmade, reduced to its constituent atoms in cascading waves of destruction. When it was over, nothing remained of the 6,000 Drax ships. The Heliax homeworld was untouched, protected by some human technology that had contained the apocalyptic energies. That day, the tide of war turned decisively. As the human-led counteroffensive pushed deeper into Drax-held territory, the Union's initial relief gave way to a growing unease. There was no denying humanity's effectiveness. The Drax were being driven back for the first time. But the methods employed left many Union species questioning what kind of allies they had summoned. The humans established forward operating bases on reclaimed worlds, bringing in more ships, weapons, and troops with each passing day. Their war machine operated with terrifying efficiency, though they shared some technology with the Union, primarily defensive systems to protect civilian populations. Their most advanced weapons remained strictly under human control. "We need to understand what we're dealing with," Counselor Tovo insisted during a closed session of the Union leadership. "The humans have deployed weapons that violate every principle of our civilization." "They're saving us," countered another representative. "Is this really the time to question their methods?" The debate might have continued indefinitely if not for the Battle of Sigma Draconis. The Drax, driven to desperation by human advances, gathered their remaining forces for a massive counterattack. Over 10,000 hive ships converged on the human fleet. The Union expected the humans to retreat before such overwhelming numbers. Instead, Admiral Grant requested an emergency meeting with Union leadership. "The Drax are adapting to our conventional weapons," he explained, his holographic form grim. "They're developing countermeasures faster than anticipated. We need to end this war quickly." "What are you proposing?" asked Alara, sensing something momentous. "We're deploying our strategic reserve, specifically our Nemesis platforms." "What exactly is Nemesis?" Admiral Mira asked. Grant's expression remained carefully neutral. "That's classified. But I need your authorization as our allies to deploy weapons of mass destruction beyond current theater parameters." After heated debate, the Union gave their reluctant approval, with one condition. Union observers would be permitted aboard the command ship to witness what humanity was about to unleash. The human fleet at Sigma Draconis appeared to retreat before the Drax onslaught, drawing the enemy into pursuit formation. Then, at a predetermined moment, 12 unmarked vessels separated from the fleet and accelerated toward the Drax armada. "Those aren't ships," explained Commander Reeves to the Union observers on the bridge of the Retribution. "They're delivery platforms for the Nemesis system." The observers watched in silence as the platforms positioned themselves at equidistant points around the Drax fleet. Then, simultaneously, they activated. What followed defied comprehension. The fabric of space itself seemed to convulse. Where the Drax fleet had been, reality distorted, twisted, and then collapsed. a sphere of utter darkness expanded briefly, before imploding upon itself, taking the entire enemy force with it. When stability returned, nothing remained of the 10,000 Drax ships except a sparse field of subatomic particles. "What have we just witnessed?" whispered a horrified Union observer. "Directed dimensional inversion," Reeves replied matter-of-factly. "The Nemesis platforms create a temporary rupture in space-time, collapsing the affected region into a singularity before allowing it to disperse harmlessly." "You weaponized black holes," stated Admiral Mira, her scales shifting to white, the color of profound shock in her species. "One of many approaches we considered," Reeves acknowledged. "This was among the more controllable options. The implications stunned the Union representatives. Humanity hadn't just brought weapons, they had brought apocalyptic technologies that could rewrite reality itself. Species that had thought themselves at the pinnacle of scientific achievement suddenly realized they were children playing with toys compared to these newcomers." As news of the battle spread, the Drax resistance crumbled. Entire hive fleets abandoned, their conquests fleeing toward the galactic rim. The war that the Union had been losing for years was suddenly, decisively being won. Yet in Union councils, a new concern emerged. What would happen when this war ended? What would they do with the terrible allies they had unleashed? 3 months after the Battle of Sigma Draconis, the war entered its final phase. The Drax, broken as a military force, retreated to their home system, a trinary star formation near the galaxy's edge that had previously been thought uninhabitable. Here, they prepared for a last stand, gathering their remaining hive ships around their Queen Mother, the central intelligence controlling their entire species. The Union proposed blockading the system, containing the Drax rather than pursuing total victory. "They're beaten," argued Alara. "Let them live out their existence in isolation. We need not commit xenocide." The human response was immediate and firm. "Containment is temporary. Extinction is permanent," Admiral Grant stated during the War Council. "The Drax will rebuild, adapt, and return stronger. The only lasting solution is complete eradication." For the first time since the alliance began, the Union formally opposed humanity's military recommendation. This created a diplomatic crisis that threatened to fracture the coalition. As tensions mounted, an unexpected development changed everything. Thousands of escape pods were detected fleeing the Drax home system. When intercepted, they were found to contain not Drax warriors, but members of previously unknown sentient species, prisoners taken from worlds beyond Union space. These survivors told horrifying stories of entire civilizations harvested by the Drax, used as food, experimental subjects, and slave labor. "They've been doing this for thousands of years," reported Dr. Marcus Wells, chief xenobiologist of the human fleet. "The Drax aren't just conquerors, they're farmers. They seed worlds with life, allow civilizations to develop, then harvest them when they reach optimal biomass." The revelation transformed the Union's perspective. What they had seen as a territorial conflict was actually the latest cycle in an ancient pattern of cultivation and consumption. The Union's own species had been spared only because they had achieved spaceflight before the Drax deemed them ready for harvesting. With this knowledge, the Union withdrew its objections to humanity's plan. The final assault was scheduled. What followed was the largest military operation in galactic history. The combined Union human fleet, now numbering over 10,000 vessels, converged on the Drax home system. At its center was the UES Judgment, a human vessel constructed specifically for this engagement, its purpose wrapped in secrecy. Admiral Mira, now serving as the Union's military liaison, stood on the Judgment's bridge alongside Admiral Grant as they approached the first defensive line. "We've detected unusual energy signatures from the central star," reported a sensor officer. "The Drax appear to be manipulating its fusion processes." Grant nodded grimly. "As expected, they're attempting to induce a supernova as a final act of spite. All ships, execute Operation Daybreak." The human fleet separated into predetermined formations, deploying specialized vessels around the star. These ships activated massive field projectors, creating a containment grid that stabilized the star's raging surface. With their doomsday weapon neutralized, the Drax launched every remaining ship in a desperate attack. The battle that followed was chaotic but brief. Union forces, now equipped with human-designed weapons, engaged the outer perimeter while specialized human units drove toward the Queen Mother's sanctuary at the system's heart. As the final defenses fell, Admiral Grant addressed the fleet. All forces hold position. The judgment will proceed alone. The massive human vessel advanced toward the planetary body housing the Drax central hive. From its underside emerged a single device, deceptively small for what it represented. "What is that?" asked Admiral Mira. "The end," replied Grant quietly. "A dimensional inverter similar to Nemesis but calibrated to a specific genetic frequency. It will affect only Drax biology, nothing else." The AE device activated, releasing waves of distortion that spread throughout the system. Wherever they touched Drax life forms, matter simply ceased to exist, painlessly erased from reality itself. Within hours, the species that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was gone. In the aftermath, as Union scientists studied the liberated Drax technology and freed the remaining prisoners, a sobering realization dawned. Humanity had not just saved the Union. They had saved the galaxy from a threat most species never even knew existed. The victory celebration on Union Central lasted 7 days, drawing representatives from every member species and the liberated civilizations. It should have been a time of unalloyed joy. The threat was gone, reconstruction was underway, and new alliances were forming. Yet beneath the festivities ran an undercurrent of uncertainty. Humanity had changed the galaxy forever, not just by defeating the Drax, but by introducing concepts and technologies that challenged the very foundations of Union philosophy. Species that had defined themselves by their commitment to peace now found themselves possessing weapons of unimaginable power. Cultures that had rejected violence as primitive now owed their existence to masters of warfare. The human delegation, led by Admiral Grant, attended the formal ceremonies but remained notably separate from the more exuberant celebrations. They watched the proceedings with the reserved vigilance of predators at rest, present but alert, never fully relaxed. On the final day, the Union Council convened a special session to determine the future relationship between humanity and the galactic community. The Grand Chamber was filled beyond capacity, with representatives from every world eager to witness this historic moment. High Counselor Alara rose to speak first. "Today we formalize our eternal gratitude to humanity, whose intervention saved not just our Union, but countless other civilizations from extinction. We offer Earth full membership in the Galactic Union, with all rights and privileges thereof." The assembled dignitaries erupted in approval. When the chamber quieted, Admiral Grant stepped forward to respond. "On behalf of Earth and her colonies, I thank the Union for this honor," he began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space. "However, we must respectfully decline full membership at this time." A murmur of shock rippled through the assembly. "Instead," Grant continued, "we propose a different arrangement. Humanity will establish an independent territory along the former Drax border regions. We will maintain our military presence as guarantors of galactic security, while gradually integrating with Union economic and cultural frameworks. In time, perhaps our societies will grow closer. But for now, we believe this separation serves everyone's interests." "May I ask why?" Alara inquired, her wings fluttering in confusion. Grant's expression remained diplomatic, but his eyes held ancient wisdom. "Because we are not like you, and pretending otherwise would do us both a disservice." Later that evening, in a private meeting with Union leadership, Grant elaborated. "Your species evolved as prey animals who developed intelligence as a survival mechanism. You created civilization to ensure safety in numbers. Violence is foreign to your nature, a last, desperate resort." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Humans evolved differently. We were persistence predators who became apex omnivores. Our intelligence developed not just for safety but for hunting. Violence is woven into our history, our mythology, our very DNA. Yet you've built great civilizations," observed Tovo. "Created art, music, philosophy. Surely you've moved beyond those origins." "We've channeled our nature, not erased it," Grant replied. "Every human carries within them both creator and destroyer. We build wonders with the same hands that craft weapons, The same passion that drives our art fuels our wars. We've learned to direct these impulses, but they remain fundamental to who we are. Admiral Mira, who had worked most closely with the humans during the war, nodded in understanding. I've studied your history. You fought yourselves more often than external threats. Exactly, Grant acknowledged. And therein lies the danger. We know ourselves too well to pretend we could seamlessly integrate into your peaceful union. Not yet. Perhaps not for generations. The implications hung heavily in the air. Humanity had saved the galaxy through means the Union species found horrifying. The same capacity that made them effective protectors made them potentially dangerous allies. So, what happens now? Asked Alara. Grant's expression softened slightly. Now we build something new. A partnership between different philosophies. You'll teach us about harmony and cooperation. Perhaps we'll teach you something about vigilance and self-reliance. Together, we'll create a stronger galaxy than either of us could alone. As the meeting concluded, the path forward remained uncertain. But one thing was clear. The galaxy would never again be caught unprepared. On the edge of Union space, human warships stood watch, a silent reminder that sometimes salvation comes in forms we fear to acknowledge. And in the vastness beyond, other predators would think twice before approaching this protected realm. For, they now knew, when the innocent cry for help, humanity unleashes hell. 5 years after the Drax War, the galaxy had transformed. The Galactic Union expanded to include many of the civilizations freed from Drax captivity, creating a more diverse coalition than ever before. Reconstruction efforts restored devastated worlds, often using advanced human terraforming techniques that compressed centuries of natural recovery into mere decades. Relations between humanity and the Union evolved into what diplomats called the symbiotic compact. Neither fully integrated nor completely separate, human military outposts formed a protective network along potentially vulnerable borders, while Union cultural and scientific missions established presences on Earth and its colonies. The arrangement benefited both sides. Union species gained security and access to human innovation in fields they had never prioritized. Humanity received new technologies that improved quality of life and expanded their understanding of the cosmos. More importantly, the relationship forced both societies to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. Admiral Mira, now serving as the Union's ambassador to Earth, stood beside Admiral Grant on the observation deck of Nexus Station, watching ships from dozens of species pass through the bustling transit hub. The Council has approved your proposal, she informed him. The War College will open next year with instructors from both our civilizations. Grant nodded approvingly. And the Defense Initiative? Proceeding as planned. 27 Union worlds have established their own military forces modeled on human organizational structures, but adapted to their species' capabilities. Progress, Grant remarked, satisfaction evident in his voice. Not everyone approves, Mira noted. Many still believe we're compromising our foundational principles. You're not abandoning peace, Grant countered. You're learning to defend it. There's a difference between being peaceful and being helpless. Their conversation was interrupted by an incoming transmission. A young Union officer appeared on the nearby screen, clearly agitated. Ambassador, Admiral, we've detected an unknown fleet approaching from beyond the galactic rim. Configuration doesn't match any known species. The two leaders exchanged glances. Both had anticipated this moment. In a galaxy teeming with life, the Drax could not have been the only predatory species. All Union worlds are implementing the protocols we developed, Mira reported as they hurried toward the command center. Civilian evacuations to hardened shelters, defensive systems online. Good, Grant replied. The Earth fleet is already moving to intercept. Admiral Reed has deployed reconnaissance drones to assess capabilities. They entered the bustling command center, where human and Union officers worked side by side with practiced efficiency. On the main display, the incoming fleet appeared as ominous red markers against the black of intergalactic space. We're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel, announced a communications officer. The screen flickered, revealing a being unlike any they had encountered. A mass of writhing tentacles surrounding a central eye structure. When it spoke, the translation matrix struggled briefly before rendering its message. Primitives. Your worlds are claimed for the Void Dominion. Surrender and serve or face extinction. You have one planetary rotation to comply. The command center fell silent. 5 years earlier, such a threat would have thrown the Union into panic. Now, officers calmly continued their tasks, implementing defense protocols developed for exactly this scenario. Ambassador Mira stepped forward. I am Ambassador Mira of the Galactic Union. We decline your generous offer. Our terms are simple. Depart immediately, and never return. The alien seemed momentarily confused by this defiance. You misunderstand. We are not negotiating. The Void Dominion does not. Admiral Grant cut the transmission with a casual gesture. I think we've heard enough. He turned to the assembled officers. Implement Thunderbolt Protocol. Throughout Union space, defensive fleets moved into predetermined positions. On frontier worlds, newly trained military units prepared planetary defense systems. And from Earth came the response force, a fleet twice the size of what had faced the Drax, carrying weapons developed specifically for this anticipated moment. In the command center, Grant and Mira watched as humanity once again prepared to unleash its unique capabilities in defense of the galaxy. Do you ever wonder, Mira asked quietly, if we made the right choice? Becoming more like you? Grant considered the question carefully. I think we're both becoming something new. You've learned that sometimes violence is necessary. We've learned that protecting others gives our strength purpose. On the tactical display, the human fleet engaged the invaders. Unlike the desperate battles against the Drax, this confrontation showed precision and coordination, born of years of planning. Union ships provided support according to their capabilities, working in harmony with human tactical doctrine. The first wave is breaking, reported a tactical officer. Enemy vessels attempting to regroup. They expected fear, Grant observed. Instead, they found preparation. Press the advantage. Don't give them time to adapt. As the battle unfolded with methodical efficiency, representatives from across the Union gathered in observation centers to witness this test of their new defense strategy. What they saw reassured them. The nightmare of the Drax War was not repeating itself. This time, they stood ready. Within hours, the Void Dominion fleet retreated, having lost a third of their ships without inflicting significant damage on the defenders. As they fled toward intergalactic space, Union long-range sensors tracked their movement, ensuring they did not change course. In the aftermath, Union and human leaders convened to assess this first contact with a new hostile species. Unlike the panic following the Drax emergence, the mood was calm, even confident. We've sent a clear message, Grant addressed the assembly. Not just to the Void Dominion, but to any other predators watching from the shadows. This galaxy is protected. A Meridian representative spoke up. And if they return with greater numbers? Grant smiled grimly. Then they'll learn what the Drax discovered too late. When peaceful beings cry for help, humanity unleashes hell. But now we stand together, your wisdom guiding our strength. As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Mira found herself reflecting on how far both civilizations had come. The Union had maintained its commitment to peace while acknowledging the necessity of defense. Humanity had channeled its martial nature toward protection rather than conquest. Together, they had created something unprecedented. A galaxy where cooperation and strength coexisted, where diverse philosophies complemented rather than conflicted. It was not the perfect harmony the Union had once envisioned, nor was it the independent human expansion some Earth factions had desired. It was something better, a future neither could have achieved alone. And in the vastness of space, word spread among the stars. Threaten the innocent in this region of the galaxy, and you will face not just humanity's wrath, but the combined might of a Union that had finally learned to bare its teeth.